And a story that we knew was coming today because we knew that the grand jury would be provided evidence and to look this over. And this was the sticking point where the criminal charges were likely going to prevent Deshaun Watson if they were to end up being brought against him. He was untradeable in that instance. Now, he's still going to face a penalty from the National Football League for their personal conduct policy and what they have, but this just clears the way for Deshaun Watson now that these criminal charges are going to be a thing of the past.
Well, and it's the point that you just brought up in the last segment of the last hour and there are no more quarterbacks that can change your franchise the way that Deshaun Watson will. So great for Deshaun Watson who has the no-trade clause, and great for the Houston Texans who now can probably get something close to a full bounty, if you will, for Deshaun Watson.
The league did release a statement, say they continue to monitor and look into the Deshaun Watson situation. Check out the latest odds of the world of sports at BetRivers Sportsbook. BetRivers is the trusted name in online sports betting. Must be 21, must be present in Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, and Pennsylvania to play. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. His name is on this show. It is Doug Gottlieb. It is the Doug Gottlieb Show on Fox Sports Radio. And live from Indianapolis as he covers the Big Ten tournament, Doug Gottlieb joins his own show here on Fox Sports Radio. What's happening, Dougie? How's it going?
Hey, guys, I noticed the pep in the step in Dan Beyer's voice. That must mean Dan thinks that the Seahawks are going to trade for Deshaun Watson. Is that right?
I just don't understand why you would trade Wilson for the draft capital and then give it away immediately for Watson and have nothing around him. But, I don't think they're going to get a discounted price either because of now all the teams that would be interested in Watson, right? I mean, there's nobody else out there.
I think there's a good question, though, of how many teams are interested in. And, I talked about this yesterday when I hosted Cowherd Show. Like, you couldn't bring him into Washington. Regardless of the fact that he's not going to be criminally charged, you can't bring a guy who has that number of civil suits pending for something with women when you have the organization under investigation for treatment of women at the top of the organization. So the reality is not going to happen. I don't know what Seattle's stance would be, right? It's a very progressive city. On the other hand, because there's no criminal charges, can they take him? And to a certain extent, yes, you're right about the draft capital. They need to rebuild the roster. And it's really hard to rebuild a roster if, in order to get the quarterback you need, you have to get rid of the picks you just acquired to rebuild that roster. So it's it's an interesting, but so if it's not them, Carolina you'd think would be interested. That makes Sam Darnold available. Would Pittsburgh be interested? I don't know. That's within the AFC. See, that's a question.
Philly.
Philly in the NFC. New Orleans. Tampa. They all need quarterbacks, and he's obviously the best one out there, and he's not going to play in Houston anymore.
So, Doug, let me ask you a dumb question. I can't speak for Dan. I never played sports quite at the level that you did, obviously at the highest levels of college and professionally. I know we have personal trainers and all that stuff. How much do you think, that's a part that I don't feel like anybody's talking about, is the guy hasn't played competitive football in going to be 24 months by the time he steps on the field. What do you expect to actually see when he steps on the field next August, September?
It's a great question. He was playing at a pretty high level before this all shut down, right? I mean, they were bad, he was good. And so I don't think, obviously there's some catching up to do in terms of live action, but it's not like he hasn't been throwing, hasn't been working out. He was around the team in the facility last year in the preseason and for most of this season. So I don't know, but I don't think, look, if he takes care of his body, he should be great. He should be ready to go. That's why they need to, if they're going to trade him, they need to speed up that process, do it now so he gets in there and starts throwing with his new teammates and he gets back sharp. The other part to it is what we don't know, and is how long a suspension is likely coming from the league. Like, just because you avoided criminal charges doesn't mean the league won't be heavy-handed in how this looks, because there are civil suits out there. So there's a lot. Aaron, to answer your question, I don't know. I do know that most quarterbacks don't believe that you're missing that much when you sit. He's missed time before he's torn his ACL twice, so he's come back sharper and better than ever. I would think this would be much the same.
Doug Gottlieb joining us here on the Doug Gottlieb Show on Fox
That's
Sports
weird, huh?
Radio.
Good booking, by the way,
weird.
by Jay Stu. Good, tough booking.
I'm Dan Beyer. He's Aaron Torres. Doug is in Indianapolis in the Big Ten tournament. We're going to talk some college hoops in a bit. But what was your main takeaway from last night's Nets demolishing of the Sixers? I mean, Durant was Durant. Ben Simmons was on the bench with a $2,000 sweater. James Harden was 3 of 17. What do you take away from a 29-point win by Brooklyn?
I would never buy a $2,000 sweater. That's one thing. I mean, I'm good. I'm good with my sweats. I'm a sweatshirt guy. We're all in denial that the Nets are legit title contenders, right?
Yeah, I was until last night. Aaron's been on that train, but I wanted to see it, and I think I saw it in 4K last night in Philly.
Yeah, I mean, look, Kevin Durant, when he's healthy, he's arguably the best player in the league, and Kyrie Irving, when he's healthy, is in the conversation of one of the best guards in the league. And then, the team is built for 3 stars, and you have a guy now that doesn't require the basketball to be successful. So, yeah, I kind of see it. And it was one of those, where I think the fans' bravado is more than the Sixers' bravado. Like, they still got to figure out. James Harden's a tricky one. He's never been great in the postseason. He wasn't great last night. And, his weaknesses of not being a particularly good defender, and when he's not getting calls, he's just an above-average player. I thought that was all on display last night, and they're still trying to figure themselves out.
So speaking of that, Dan and I were talking about this earlier. Do you feel like the Embiid Harden hype was a little bit much after 2 or 3 games? It was somebody Dan Patrick was talking about this earlier, but the new Shaq and Kobe, the new career, like it seemed a little bit much to me. How did you stand on the early Embiid Harden hype prior to last night?
I would agree that it's a little bit much. I also we have a tendency, AT, as you know, to do it's all or nothing, right? Either James Harden's a bum or James Harden and Joel Embiid are the greatest combination since, peanut butter and jelly, right? The truth is somewhere in the middle. And the truth is that the other part about James Harden that frustrates people is, his lack of overall physical conditioning, and that hurts your consistency. But that game was a playoff atmosphere. That had the atmosphere of something that could have been awesome, and Philly just no-showed, and Harden especially. And I think that was, if that didn't settle their ego down a little bit, nothing will. But I mean, we had the same hype around when Westbrook joined him. That didn't work. When he went to Brooklyn last year, that didn't work. And now in Philadelphia. So some of it is Harden's super talented, but is he a winning basketball player? That is definitely TBD.
That's what I don't want to say annoyed me because I'm not a Sixers fan, but what bothered me about last night was your point about the fans knew it, the Nets knew it, Seth Curry knew it. He had 24 against his former team. Everybody knew it except for the guys on the court for the 76ers. I don't know how you lose by 29 in a game that everybody was waiting for. And that's what bothers me so much about, I guess, about Philadelphia is I understand if you lose by 12. But you're down double digits at the end of the first quarter, and it doesn't get any better, and it's just a romp afterwards. I don't know if there's any excuse for Philadelphia to put that sort of effort up and how anybody could believe in them after that effort last night.
Yeah, that's a hard one. That's a really hard one. And I understand it's just one game.
Yeah.
It's just a regular season game, but it wasn't. That's one of those games where, You get your neck lined up so you don't have a hairy neck. That's one of those.
Yes.
If it's there's going out to have drinks with the guys, and there's times when you shave and make sure you put on some cologne. That's one of those deals. And it was stunning to see them and what happened and how they no-showed.